All right, so we're now live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're a bit delayed with our live stream due to technical issues, but we're here. And thank you, guys, for joining. Thank you for sending your questions. And I'm happy to have this discussion with you guys today. So whether you're whichever platform it is that you're joining me from, um, say hello as you join, and I'd be very interested to know where you're joining me from today. So I'm Kay Wilson. For those who are joining us for the first time, I'm Kay Wilson, regulated Canadian immigration consultant based in Regina, Saskatchewan. And I will be talking to us today about some of the current, I would say, topical issues that are being highlighted right now where Canadian immigration is concerned. And of course, like I said, you have shared your questions, and I will attempt to answer as much of them as I can. Probably won't be able to answer all questions, but we'll see how far we can get with regards to that. Um, so drop your questions too as you come in, and as we're going through, if questions arise, feel free to drop them. And then some of you would have pre-submitted your questions. So one of the first thing that I'm going to talk about today is express entry and general permanent residency in Canada. I mean, of course, that's a huge topic right now. We have thousands of candidates in the express entry pool who are looking to have an opportunity to come to Canada, to migrate to Canada as permanent residents. And we see where, firstly, Canada has a new government, right? We just came through an election. And so we same party, same Liberal Party, but under new leadership. And so whenever there is a change in government, of course, you can expect a change in policy sometimes. Um, so one of the things that the the government had highlighted even prior to being elected was, some of the policies and the strategies that they will be sharing as it relates to immigration. Um, so it should be interesting to see what direction they actually go in now that they have been elected. One thing, though, that they did highlight as part of their immigration policies was stabilizing permanent resident admissions, right? So stabilizing those numbers. Generally, we will see a new immigration levels plan released just about every year, and it will be forecasting for the current year as well as for future years. So the last levels plan that we have includes a plan for 2025 all the way to 2027. Of course, that plan would have been finalized under the old government, under the Trudeau leadership. Same Liberal Party, but a different leadership. And one of the campaign, I would say one of the taglines that the government used, that Prime Minister Mark Carney used, was the fact that what he sold to Canadians was, this is going to be a different direction, right? Under his leadership, his policies and what he promotes will be different from the Trudeau government. So, I mean, that would also relate to immigration, in my opinion, right? So, if this government goes through with the current plan as is, great, but I do expect that we may see some changes. He did highlight the fact that he wants to attract high skilled workers. He wants the best of the best talent, right? And so we'll just have to see what that looks like. I think that might mean we see some flexibility in terms of the targets that they have set, especially as it relates to permanent residence targets through the federal high skilled programs, which would include the Federal Skilled Worker Program, Federal Skilled Trades, Canadian Experience Class, right? So all of the programs that are in the express entry system. So One of the target that they have set since he was elected, that they have announced anyways, is the plan to stabilize permanent resident numbers to less than 1% of Canada's population, right, annually, after 2027. So that's an interesting target. And I think too, especially with the situation with Canada's relationship with the US right now, and the need to attract more in terms of numbers, in terms of permanent residency, and increase that population, right? To be able to withstand some of the pressures coming from the US, then those numbers are probably going to have to go up in terms of the admission, the actual admission of permanent residents. So it should be interesting to see. Right now, the plan includes 395,000 for 2025, 380,000 2026, and 365,000 for 2027. So I think we should see um, some discussions, some announcements soon. As well, we have a new immigration minister. Um, she is not new to Canadian immigration. She was a previous immigration minister in Nova Scotia. Her name is Lena. So Lena Diab. She's now the new immigration minister. And again, it's we have not had a government under Prime Minister Mark Carney before. So it should be interesting to see his influence on the portfolio of immigration, as well as the what autonomy the minister will have in terms of making certain policy decisions. So that should be interesting. Normally, when we have a new government, they are often well, from what we've seen from the previous administration, they're often issued a mandate, right? So they would be given a mandate letter from the prime minister with some of the key things that they, as a government, would want to see achieved. So we should be on the lookout for that if that continues in this new administration. The other thing that we're seeing consistently, right, and the new prime minister did even mention that as one of the focus areas, which is francophone admission. So there again, they're emphasizing the French language and the desire to attract French speakers. So francophone immigration remains a priority, a very key priority, and it is going to be one of those areas where if you have the capacity to learn French, that would be recommended. If you want to help yourself a little bit, give yourself, a boost. If you're in the express entry pool, and if you are able to, that is definitely an option. They have the Francophone Mobility, program as an option as well, where if you can receive a certain level of proficiency, CLB 5 or NCLC 5 in French, then you could in fact apply for a work permit in Canada with a job offer, and that is without the need to have an LMIA. All right. So the benefit of knowing French and being proficient in that, where Canadian immigration is concerned, is it's increasing, and have a long-term goal of 12% by 2029. That's in terms of the francophone population in Canada outside Quebec. So that's the pledge, and I'm not sure why this is such a high priority for the government, but it is, right? And so you will see that impact the numbers. Now there is the CEC, Canadian Experience Class. With the Canadian Experience Class, we just saw a recent resumption in CEC draws, And as part of the immigration plan that was released, the government did mention, a continued in Canada focus. I mean, there are thousands of temporary residents in Canada who are looking for that opportunity to transition to permanent residency. And so that in Canada focus is exactly that. It will give these temporary residents in Canada an opportunity to transition to permanent residency um, through these programs. Now, we don't know if this new government is going to facilitate, you know, other pathways to help with the transition, because for right now, the allocations to the provinces have been cut significantly. And so a lot of provinces are beyond their quotas, right? They have more applications than availability of PR slots. We see British Columbia significantly revamped their program, so it's almost near impossible to get PR in BC right now. So if your destination is British Columbia, I would say you may want to look at other provinces, or even if you're going to BC for school, for example, you will need to be open to that fact that you may have to move, elsewhere in Canada to obtain permanent residency, depending on what you're doing, of course. Those who are in working for the health authorities, or one of the health authorities in BC, for example, they will have a better shot um, in terms of permanent residency there. So it's a little bit more difficult right now in British Columbia to get PR through the PNP. Then we have Ontario. Like, Ontario has not had a draw since the start of the year. They have not come forward and released their targets for 2025. And we've seen some of the other provinces have completely reshuffled and changed their programs in order to adapt to the fact that they don't have as many allocated numbers as they probably were previously planning for. And they would have had inventory of applications from 2024, right, that are still in process. And so they have to account for those numbers. We saw it here in Saskatchewan with the SINP, where the SINP actually had to return applications, unfortunately, right? So they had to return applications, some of the applications that they had in process, because of this new reality. They had a certain number of allocated to them from the federal government. So a certain PR, well, it's really provincial nomination, right? So they have a certain allocation, and they realized that what they had in inventory plus what they wanted to attract and prioritize for this year had to be balanced. And so they had to make some tough decisions where that's concerned. So if you are in Canada, what I would implore you to do is to ensure that you are having all of your options assessed way in advance of when you will need to be ready. So you want to have a plan. Don't just, you know, passively go by and then wait until last minute to try to figure out what your PR pathway is going to be. Ensure that you're planning and have a backup to that plan. So you want to ensure that you are planning and you are assessing and reviewing all of your options. And of course, if you need to get professional help to do so, I would recommend that as well. Feel free to reach out to our team for a consultation where that's concerned. But you do want to ensure that you have a plan in place and you know what's available to you in the province that you are in. And if nothing may be available there, then what are your other options? Where else can you go? What other programs can you work towards? It might not even mean moving per se. It might even mean the type of employment that you have. Like, there are different ways that it could be done. So you want to ensure that you are going in armed with knowledge, because I I'm seeing a lot more people who are consulting with us. So they're doing a consultation with us to find out their options, but they're doing it sometimes with 1 month left on their work permit, or you know them being out of status, or where it's like very late, and the options and the solutions that we could present to them become lessened because of the timelines that we're working with. So the more time you have, the better it will be. So ensure that you are planning in advance. How do I contact your team? The contact details is on the screen, or you can reach out to send an email, admin@nccanadaimmigration.com, and you can also visit our website at nccanadaimmigration.com. Okay, so this last few days, the Canadian Association of Professional Immigration Consultants, so that's the one of the bodies that we are members of, and they are holding this conference over the next few days, conference for immigration professionals. And in the conference, IRCC representatives are also present to share on various topics. And one of the things that they discussed was processing times, right? So you would have seen with a lot of applications, the processing times would have increased drastically, especially for those who are inside Canada. And you'll have a few people, quite a number of people who are at the very end of their processing. So they might be waiting on their confirmation of permanent residence, their ECOPR, right? And they are waiting longer than they should. And so they were providing some insights on the processing times and what's happening. So one, they are going to be changing how they release processing time data. Currently, when you go on IRCC's website to explore processing time for a certain application, you'll see the processing time there reflected is accounting for historical data. So in the past, in the recent few months, this is how long it took us to process this particular type of application. 80% of those applications, right? So the data that we see right now represents the processing times for 80% of applications over the last few months. Now, what they want to do is to make processing times that are being released forward-looking. So instead of saying that, okay, it took us 5 months to process this type of application based on what we have completed in the last few months, they're looking at their inventory and they're saying that, okay, based on what we have in inventory, this is how long it's going to take us to process this type of application, which will give applicants a more realistic view of how long their application may take. So I think that's a good change. So that's what they shared, or that's one of the things that they shared. They also shared stats about the number of applications that they processed, decisions they processed in the last years, and what based on what was processed, what was approved, the percentage of approval and refusal, and so on. And also, as it relates to like those, especially those who are in Canada and waiting on their ECOPR, those are delayed, but it will require some patience on applicants' part, unfortunately, as they try to space the inventory that they're processing. They're delaying final decisions to be able to ensure that the decisions are being matched with their yearly targets. So it's not, if your application is delayed, it's not necessarily because your application is going to be refused or anything like that, but because of how they're processing them right now. And yeah, and so you'll also see that delay in getting the acknowledgement of receipt, because even now we're seeing that with some of our applications where the acknowledgement of receipts would get them in 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks. They're even taking longer with issuing those initial acknowledgement of receipts because of how they're essentially triaging the applications right now, to manage their inventory and quotas and ensure that they have flexibility with processing applications, especially because we're not that we're not yet halfway through the year. They have a certain quota or target. We have a new government. They might come in with different policies, so they want to allow themselves to have that flexibility to make changes as they need in terms of accepting new applications and so on. So that's what's happening, and those were some of the insights that they shared. As it relates to workers, we have a lot of temporary workers right now in Canada whose work permits are um, near expiry or about to expire, and businesses are lobbying the government because they're also feeling the pinch. They're losing workers and they can't really do anything to assist them in some cases. And so the businesses are lobbying the government. They're lobbying the provincial government especially, and federal, but most so the provincial government, and asking for workers and immigration reform so that they can maintain the workers that they have, and also so that they can bring in more workers. Because the challenge that some of the businesses are seeing is, okay, we want to bring in workers, but we we also would like to have them more on a long-term basis. And when there's no clear pathway for some of these workers, of course it's going to depend on the type of position, but when there's no clear pathway, then it makes it difficult to really plan long-term for their business and bring in workers. And because of the upfront costs that they will have to incur to do so, they want to make sure that they're getting the benefit that they want. So we're seeing, for example, here in Saskatchewan, um, the provincial government noted yesterday, I think it was, that they are um, what they're planning to do. We'll see. It's a plan. It's a proposal that they're making to IRCC, but essentially, they want to lobby for similar to what Manitoba did. So Manitoba was able to they were able to have an agreement with IRCC, with the federal government, to get temporary work permit extensions for the temporary residents that are in Manitoba, right? Working in Manitoba. So Saskatchewan is essentially going to be pushing for that. So we'll see what happens. I think that would benefit a lot of workers whose work permits are, close to expiry, some of whom would have, expired already. So they're working on that. So I think that's exciting, and a lot of temporary residents would benefit from that for sure. All right, so I'm going to go to some of the questions that I'm seeing. Quite a few questions, so I'll see how many I can go through. All right, so somebody's asking if you get a job offer before coming. I'm assuming you mean coming to Canada. Um, can you apply for a work permit after landing? Or yeah, so you would have to apply if you have a job offer. Of course, if you're not, applying under some sort of LMIA exempt categories, then it would have to be an LMIA supported job offer, right? First and foremost. And then of course you'll have to apply for your work permit before coming to Canada. And somebody's asked, it's a good question. What recommendations would you have for someone on a PGWP, so post-graduation work permit, that's expiring this year and is in both PNP and express entry pools, but has yet to receive an ITA? I would say it depends on, when your work permit will expire. But I think one of the best things that you could do is look at your NOC and look at where's your score. I guess those are some questions I would have for you. Where's your score currently? Um, where are you getting experience? Like what field are you currently um, getting experience, or is your past experience in? So one of the things that you can do is, of course, you can be strategic about where you're working. In Express Entry, we see that even more recently, we've seen the education draw, we've seen the healthcare draw, right? So they are, in fact, drawing from these category selections. And so, if depending on where you're at currently in the pool, you may want to be strategic about the type of experience that you're getting, and see whether it is that you could get experience in one of those categories that might put you in that category selection and increase your chance of getting an ITA from within the pool. So that's an option for you. Um, how to apply for the Francophone program? For the Francophone program, you need a job offer. Like I said, the job offer doesn't have to be an LMIA supported job offer. It could be a job offering anything, honestly. So they have completely revamped that. Previously it used to be like within a certain tier, right? Tier 0 to 3. Now it's any type of job, and as long as you can demonstrate Francophone proficiency or French proficiency in up to CLB 5 or NCLC 5. Okay. All right. Does working in the bank IT sector count under banking or IT? Okay, so if you're talking about like your knock is way more specific than that. Your knock, the knock that's associated with your job will literally be dependent on what you do in your job. So it will be dependent on the duties that you perform. So you may want to look at the duties that you perform in your specific job or your role, and then determine like the knock that's associated with that. So you're gonna do that comparison of your duties versus the knock. Some, occupations, it's very straightforward to find the knock. Others, it might take, a little bit more of digging and comparing before you can get it right. But you do, that's very important. That's one thing that you don't want to get wrong. You want to ensure that you, especially if you're applying for permanent residency, of course, you want to ensure that your knock is in fact correct. I think I saw some additional questions over here. I'm in Alberta right now. Is it worth going to Saskatchewan to try and get here? um I would say it would be a good idea. I mean, one of the key differences between the Saskatchewan and Alberta program is the fact that with Saskatchewan, as someone with a job offer, right, you're not going in a program pool like you would be with Alberta, but you would be making a direct application for provincial nomination. Like once you have a job offer, right, SINP approved job offer. So it might be worth it. I don't know enough about your situation, but it also will depend on how long you have remaining on your work permit. So that would be a consideration as well. And the field that you're in, how long have you been working in that field? So those, I think, would be factors that would need to be considered to determine whether or not that move um, is a good move or not. I have some clients of ours that we have instructed to make that move because I know their situation, right? So, but those are the things that you would have to assess to make that decision. What if your PGWP expired? What's a way to get status should one leave? Well, I can say firstly, do not just um, don't sit and allow your status to expire. Always try to see what solutions might be available for you, if you're in that situation. Do a consultation, make the sacrifice, do what you need, get the support you need, get the advice you need. So I'll say that first. Don't just sit and allow your status to expire. That can be really bad for you. And then the second thing is, if it has expired, just go back to the question. Yeah, if it has expired, then it means that you're out of status, right? It depends on how long ago it would have expired, and whether it is that you have a job, or what's going on with your situation. um I would not encourage anyone to remain in Canada illegally, of course. There is an option for restoration of status within 90 days, but like I said, it just depends on your individual situation. That one will be a more complex matter, where a consultation would definitely be required. But don't just sit there and allow your status to expire. Ensure that you get the right advice in time so that you can make an informed decision. Good question. So with all the changes, is it still a good idea to proceed with college as a pathway? I would say Canada is still open for business, even amidst all the changes. I know when you're seeing all of this, you see the news and you see all of these things that are happening, and it can be frustrating. It can seem intimidating, and you're wondering, am I making the right decision to go to Canada right now? um, you will see that in the immigration levels plan, there is still quite a high number of allocations for study permits, right? So Canada is still open for business. And the fact is, even now, when we submit study permit applications, those are the quickest applications to be processed. Students bring a lot of money to Canada. When you look at what's happening right now, even with the Canada-US relations and trade and all of that, Canada, the economy will need more students, right? So that's a given, that's a fact. And then where we're seeing too with the in Canada focus, especially for this year, you'll see that there are a lot more opportunities to make that transition to permanent residency by being in Canada. For some folks, being outside Canada, they may not have enough points to even be considered in the PR programs, the permanent residency programs. So it can only be a strategic move, right? And that will have to be assessed on an individual basis. But Canada is still open for studying. The study permit pathway is still a great pathway to get to Canada, get Canadian education, and the one of the main benefits is the Canadian work experience that you will get, that can help you greatly towards getting that PR status, right? So it's still a very good option. We're still seeing a lot of clients are pursuing that pathway. Like I said, I don't remember the exact quota that was allocated to students. I think it was 200 something thousand, right? So there is still that, and it's still a valid pathway. So if it was gonna be completely shut down, or there wasn't going to be that opportunity to transition, I mean, they could have shut it down completely, but they can't. It's a huge income earner for Canada, right? And not just income earner in terms of the GDP and the value that the creation of jobs and all of that. They're the ministers of immigration have said in the past that international students are very, very prime targets for immigration, because they are the easiest to make that transition to permanent residency, right? And again, back to that in Canada focus, those who are in Canada right now who are making that transition, a lot of them, the bulk of them, were former international students. So there's that. And especially if you, like I said, if you don't have, a lot of your points isn't very high, like in express entry, for example, what other way do you have? And then um as you age further, it's only going to get a lot more difficult. A lot of things will change, right? So if you have that opportunity and you can afford it, and to make that move, i would I would strongly encourage it. For the French pathway, is it a requirement that I have a job experience utilizing French? Well, in terms of job experience, that will be more along the lines of the employer and what they desire, right? Um, so what really is required for that particular pathway is competence in French. So being able to speak French, and um yeah, so being able to speak French and then having the job offer, right? Those are the two key requirements. um in terms of work experience, that would be more like your ability to get the job, right? Because an employer offering you employment may want to see that you have experience in whatever the job is that they are going to offer you. All right, guys. um if I want information on any of the assign P or RNIP, which option should I select? For consultation, you may want to look at like a permanent residence consultation for that. Yeah, that's pretty typical. Like, as you're coming read the non-express entry pathway and still waiting for AOR, that's normal. I can tell you, it's normal. So don't lose your mind. It's normal. It's not just you. It's not just you. All right, guys, I think I will have to wrap up here. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for all your questions. Um, if you have follow-ups, send us an email, admin@nccanadaimmigration.com, and my team and I would be happy to assist you further. And if you need, you know, personalized guidance on particular immigration options or pathways, feel free to visit our website, nccanadaimmigration.com, and schedule a consultation, and we will be happy to help you from there. And if you want more of these live broadcasts, comment below whether you're watching live or watching the replay. Comment and let us know the topics that you want us to discuss. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.